The screen flashed my name before anyone realized what they were looking at. Majority rights 51%. Sophia Alden. No one spoke. No one breathed. It was the kind of silence that arrives when the truth lands before anyone is ready for it. 3 days earlier, I had walked into the end-of-year meeting at Galwarden Systems believing it would be routine. I took my seat near the front, notebook on my lap, trying not to think about the long week or the stack of compliance reports waiting on my desk. I did not expect my career to end before the meeting did. VP Martin Hale stood at the podium with a grin stretched too tight. "Let's make this short," he said. "We have exciting leadership changes." He motioned to Evan, his son, who looked barely awake, his tie crooked like he had borrowed it on the drive over. "Effective immediately," Martin announced. "Evan will step into the senior compliance lead role." My chest tightened. That was my role, my work, my 12 years. Someone whispered my name, but Martin kept going. He looked straight at me, smiling as if he'd been waiting for this moment. "And Sophia," he said, "your value here is 0. The room felt like it tilted. HR's director lifted a hand toward security. Evan shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. The CEO stared at the floor. A few employees tried to look away, pretending silence made them innocent. "Stand up," Martin ordered. I did. My voice caught in my throat before I could form a word. Security approached, slow and careful, as if I might explode. We reached the hallway before everything stopped. Harold Bishop, chairman of the board, stepped out of the elevator like he had been waiting there. His tone was quiet, but it cut through the corridor. "Let her go," he told security. Martin scoffed. "This is procedure." Harold didn't even look at him. "If you fire her today," he said, "you will regret it by Christmas." The guards stepped back instantly. Martin's smirk thinned. The CEO glanced between them, pale and confused. I didn't understand why Harold had intervened or what he knew. I only knew that the humiliation in the conference room was no longer the end of the story. It was the start of something else, something I hadn't seen coming as I walked out into the cold Ohio air. Harold caught up to me just past the lobby doors. The cold air stung my face, but his voice cut through it first. "Sophia," he said, steady and low. "Do you still have Carrick's envelope?" I froze. "The one from the Christmas dinner." "Yes," he replied. "He told me he gave it to you, said you'd know when to open it." He studied me for a long second. "Today qualifies." I never opened it, I admitted. His brows tightened. "Then go home. Open it. And do not call anyone until you do." Before I could ask anything, he stepped back inside, leaving me with nothing but my humiliation and the echo of his urgency. I drove home in silence. When I walked into the living room, I didn't bother turning on the lights. My jacket was still on when I pulled the envelope out of the bottom drawer of my old desk. The red paper was thick, the handwriting unmistakable. Raymond Carrick, founder, mentor, the only executive who ever listened. My fingers shook as I slid the seal open. Inside was a notarized document. I read the title 3 times before the words landed. 51% protective voting rights, Carrick Trust, beneficiary Sophia Alden. I whispered the words out loud as if hearing them would make them real. 51% voting rights. Me. There was another sheet tucked behind it, a shorter one, written in Carrick's cramped handwriting. "For the day someone tries to erase you." My breath caught. I read it again, then again. The humiliation from the meeting replayed itself in my mind. Martin's smirk, Evan's silence, the CEO's eyes pinned to the carpet. "Your value here is 0. But Carrick had written something very different. I held the papers to my chest, feeling the weight of them press into my palms. Whatever this trust was, whatever 51% meant, it was not something Martin Hale could dismiss with a single sentence. And Harold Bishop clearly knew more than he'd said as he sent me home with this envelope still unopened. Harold was already waiting when I stepped into the small law office. He nodded toward the woman beside him. Sophia, this is Miriam Lowell. She handled Carrick's estate. Miriam extended her hand. I'm glad you came. We need to talk about what you found in that envelope. I took a seat, the papers still folded inside my coat. I do not understand any of it. Why would Carrick give me voting rights? I was never part of ownership. Miriam opened a thin folder. He anticipated that. These are not ownership shares. They are protective rights, a structure he created shortly before his passing. Harold leaned forward. He worried Martin would treat the company like a family trophy. He wanted a safeguard. I felt a tremor in my voice. So he chose me. Why? Because you were the only one who argued with him, Harold said. He trusted people who told him the truth, not what sounded convenient. Miriam pushed the document toward me. Your 51% grants veto authority over executive appointments and decisions tied to ethics, compliance, and strategic risk. You cannot run the company, but you can stop it from being corrupted. I stared at the wording. This is enormous. It is precise, Miriam corrected, and it activates only under one condition, if you are removed without documented cause. She tapped the line, which is exactly what happened when Martin dismissed you in the meeting. Harold's tone hardened. The moment he fired you, Sophia, the trust snapped into place. He has no idea what he triggered. My throat tightened. Martin thinks I walked out powerless. He thinks wrong, Harold said. Miriam closed the file gently. You have a decision to make. You can exercise these rights or leave the trust dormant. But ignoring it will not stop the consequences already set in motion. I folded the papers slowly. The humiliation from 3 days earlier no longer felt like the ending Martin intended. It felt like the start of something he never imagined I would hold in my hands. By the next morning, my phone lit up before sunrise. The first message came from a former analyst. Are you okay? Something is happening upstairs. Another followed from a project manager I barely knew. People are whispering. Legal is panicking. I ignored them until Harold called. Martin and the CEO are in emergency meetings. He said without preamble. They have heard the term Carrick Trust, but they do not understand it. They are scrambling. They think I filed a complaint. I replied. That is how they see everything. A complaint to quiet or bury. Harold exhaled sharply. They are guessing blind. The legal team found references to the trust in archive folders, but nothing detailed. Carrick kept it compartmentalized. A soft chime interrupted us another message, then another. Employees who had barely spoken to me in hallways were sending paragraphs now, each one carrying some memory of Martin undercutting them. I read one aloud. She says she warned Martin about a data risk. He laughed and told her to stop being dramatic. Harold's voice lowered. Martin never understood the value of people who think ahead. I sank onto the couch. I do not know if I want to go back there. 12 years was enough. I do not want to fight every room I walk into. You are not fighting for them, he said. You are fighting for the company Carrick built, and for everyone Martin dismissed the way he dismissed you. The truth of that pressed into my chest. I thought of every meeting where my recommendations were waved off, every warning treated like inconvenience, every moment I swallowed frustration to keep things from falling apart. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Another voice offering quiet support. I closed my eyes and let the sound settle. The company that shoved me out the door was now afraid of my shadow, afraid of the trust they awakened without understanding it. I stood, the decision forming even before I said it aloud. Harold, tell Miriam I am ready to proceed. Miriam's voice was calm when she called me that afternoon. It is time. If you intend to exercise your authority, the notice must go out today. I swallowed hard. Send it. Use my name exactly as the trust states. I already have the draft prepared, she replied. Once it is delivered, they cannot delay. The trust forces a mandatory board session within 48 hours. I could almost hear her smile. They will not like it. Neither did I said. 3 days ago. Within the hour. The notice reached Gallwarden Systems. My phone lit up again, first with confusion, then with fear, then with anger carefully disguised as politeness. The CEO called twice. I let both attempts ring out. I finally answered when Harold patched us into a joint line. The CEO's voice cracked. Sophia, this is unnecessary. We can resolve things quietly. There is no need for theatrics. This is not theatrics, I said. This is the procedure Carrick put in place. He hesitated. We need time to review the documents. Miriam cut in sharply. You do not have time. The trust overrides any internal delay. The board must convene no later than the day after tomorrow. A beat of silence. Then the CEO exhaled through his teeth. Fine. In the background, I heard Martin barking something. Then he grabbed the phone. Sophia, this is ridiculous. You think a piece of old paperwork gives you authority? Carrick added nonsense to half the files he signed. I kept my voice flat. If you believed that, you would not be yelling. His tone turned icy. I am not afraid of you. Then show up to the meeting, I said, and bring your son. Another silence, longer this time. When the call disconnected, Harold spoke quietly. They felt the shift. I did too. I admitted. 3 days ago, I could not even look Martin in the eye. Now he cannot say my name without flinching. Miriam cleared her throat. Prepare everything. Notes, records, examples. They will challenge you. I tightened my grip on the folder beside me. I am ready. And this time, they do not get to decide who I am in that room. The boardroom felt tighter than I remembered. Martin stood near the window, pacing. The CEO hovered beside him, whispering fast, his voice cracking under the strain. When Harold entered, both men straightened instantly. Let us begin, Harold said. He took the seat at the head of the table. Miriam, proceed. Martin stepped forward. Before she starts, no. Harold cut him off. You have spoken enough. Miriam set her laptop on the table, her tone clipped and professional. I am here on behalf of the Carrick Trust. Per its mandate, we will review the protective rights attached to Ms. Sophia Alden. Martin barked a laugh. There is nothing to review. Some dusty claws Carrick scribbled before he... Sit down, Harold said, sharper this time. Miriam clicked to the first slide. Legal text filled the screen. Another click. Trust structure. Another... Activation conditions. Martin's irritation shifted to unease. What is this? Miriam ignored him and clicked to the final slide. The screen turned white, then displayed one line in large black letters. Majority protective rights. 51% Sophia Alden. The room broke into murmurs. Evan stared at the screen, mouth slightly open. Martin's face drained of color. This is absurd, he said. She is not an owner. She is not even employed here. That is irrelevant, Miriam replied. These rights concern ethical control and strategic veto power, not employment status. Harold folded his hands. Continue. Sophia. I rose slowly. For 12 years. I kept this company compliant. I reported risks. I warned of violations. I spoke up even when it cost me. And Martin dismissed every caution as overreaction. Martin slammed his palm on the table. You were negative. You slowed progress. No, I said. I kept us out of federal penalties your decisions would have triggered, Evan whispered, almost to himself. You promoted me because you thought no one could stop you. The realization hit him harder than any reprimand could. I stayed standing, the truth finally spoken aloud. The balance in the room had shifted, and everyone felt it the moment my name appeared beside 51%. Harold cleared his throat. We will now address the matter of executive conduct and the promotion of Evan Hale. His voice held no warmth. A formal vote is required. Martin stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. This is retaliatory. All of it. You are punishing me for resisting outdated systems. Harold didn't blink. You may present your statement. Martin straightened his tie, trying to recover authority. I have spent years modernizing this company. Some of you fear change, so you cling to compliance rules written before half of our staff was born. Progress requires bold leadership, not constant hand-wringing. His eyes darted toward me. Sophia never understood that. I stood, steady. What I understood was risk. I understood the audit warnings you hid from the board, the incident reports you buried, the staff you silenced when they pushed back on unsafe timelines. One board member leaned forward. Is this accurate? I nodded. Martin ordered me to rewrite a regulatory summary last spring. He said, and I quote, "No one needs the truth spelled out." I refused. He blocked the full report from reaching all of you. Martin snapped. Those were internal adjustments. Those were federal violations waiting to happen. I said, and I should not have had to fight alone to prevent them. A murmur rolled through the table. Even the CEO looked ill. Harold raised a hand. We will vote now. Names were called one by one. A few board members hesitated, but each vote landed heavier than the last. When the count reached me, Harold nodded. Ms. Alden. I lifted my chin. Remove Martin Hale from all executive duties, effective immediately. Silence followed. A final, irrevocable silence. Harold turned to Evan. Your promotion is void. You lack the required regulatory certification, and your appointment violated trust protocols. Evan stared at his father, realizing the truth. Martin's face collapsed into something small, something stripped of arrogance. The man who once called me zero now understood the meaning of the number he never expected me to hold. The meeting adjourned, but no one left the room quickly. The CEO lingered near the doorway, pale and rattled. Harold approached him first. You will undergo a full probation review, Harold said. Every decision made under Martin's influence will be examined. The CEO attempted a smile. Of course. I welcome transparency. You never welcomed it before. I replied quietly. He flinched but did not argue. By the time I stepped into the hallway, HR was already gathering files. One of the directors approached me with a hesitant nod. We are reopening the internal complaints. The ones Martin blocked. Do it thoroughly. I said, and do not inform him of the details. She nodded again, more firmly this time. We will. As I made my way toward the elevator, a few employees drifted near, pretending to check their phones. One of the data analysts whispered, We heard what happened. Thank you for standing up to him. I did not come back for revenge. I said. I know, she replied. That is why it mattered. The elevator doors slid open, and I stepped inside with Harold. He watched me closely. You understand the magnitude of what you did today, he said. I understand the responsibility. I answered, I will not become what he was. You could, Harold warned gently. Power is a mirror. It reflects whatever stands in front of it. I will not use it to punish. I said, only to protect. He nodded, satisfied. Later that evening, I met with HR again to outline new policies protections for staff who reported risks, complaint pathways Martin once buried, and a rule requiring independent review of executive promotions. The director listened carefully, writing down every word. This will change things, she said. That is the point. I replied. For the first time in years, I felt something settle inside me. Not triumph, not vengeance, but the steady weight of knowing I finally had the authority to rewrite what had been broken for so long. I met with Harold and the board 2 days later, a thick stack of notes under my arm. He gestured toward the table. You said you wanted to propose reforms. I do, I answered, and they will be extensive. The CEO cleared his throat. Sophia, after everything, we could simply appoint you to Martin's former role. It would streamline. No, I said. I am not here for a title. I am here to fix what broke under one. Harold gave a faint smile. Proceed. I handed copies of my plan around the table. First, a governance committee with full independence, reporting directly to the board. Second, enforced anti-nepotism rules. No executive may promote or hire a family member without external review. The CEO frowned. That will be difficult to manage. It will be fair, I replied. A finance director tapped the papers. This includes new promotion pathways for non-executive staff. Yes, I said. For years, people who carried the hardest work were treated as replaceable. They deserve real advancement opportunities, not empty praise. Harold nodded. What else? Annual ethics reviews for all executives. I continued. Mandatory training for compliance oversight. And disciplinary procedures that cannot be overridden by a single VP. Silence followed as they read. Then Harold sat back. This is overdue. The CEO let out a resigned sigh. You are reshaping the company. No, I said. I am returning it to what Carrick intended. After the meeting, Harold walked with me toward the elevators. You know, he said, the board is impressed. Many believe you would make an excellent VP. I would lose myself in the politics. I replied, and I did not fight to become another version of Martin. He studied me for a moment. Then you will lead from where you stand. I nodded, feeling something shift inside me. The reforms were not just rules, they were a promise that no one would be sidelined, silenced, or called zero again. Christmas morning arrived quieter than any I could remember. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee cooling in my hands and unfolded Carrick's note again. The ink had faded slightly, but the words were still sharp. For the day someone tries to erase you. I traced the edge of the page. You saw further than any of us, I murmured. My phone buzzed on the table. Harold's name appeared first, followed by a short message. It is official. The federal notice came through at dawn. I called him immediately. What did it say? Martin Hale is barred from any governance role. Harold replied, multiple violations. The investigation uncovered everything you warned us about. It is irreversible. I closed my eyes. I did not want this to become a spectacle. It is not, he said. It is accountability. Another vibration. A message from HR. Evan Hale has withdrawn from all internal roles. Failed the federal certification retest. Leaving Columbus. I exhaled slowly. I hope he finds something better than the legacy his father tried to hand him. You gave him the chance to see the truth, Harold said. Whether he learns from it is his decision. Later that afternoon, I stopped by a small gathering in the break room, just a few junior staff who had organized an informal holiday lunch. When I stepped in, they straightened, unsure if they should speak. A young analyst finally approached. Thank you. Ms. Alden, you changed everything, not just for yourself, for all of us. I shook my head. All I did was stop pretending the system was working. No, she said softly. You made it work again. I stayed only a short while before heading home. The winter air cool against my face. The weight of 51% no longer felt like armor or burden. It felt like a responsibility I could finally carry without breaking. My value had never been zero. It had simply been overlooked, spoken over, or buried beneath other people's noise. The truth had always been quieter, steadier, built on integrity that did not shake when someone tried to erase it. When a woman refuses to accept being erased, how many lives can she rewrite, including her own?